So again, welcome everybody. My name is John Neral. This is my weekly Facebook Live. Just a few housekeeping tips before we get started. I do have a free resource on my website called 3 Steps to Creating Your Next Advancement Opportunity Without Feeling Overwhelmed. It's a great and valuable resource that truly comes from the heart and through a lot of experience. And it's really relevant today because today is show number 41, which is called How Do You Know When It's Time to Leave Your Job? And I'm going to share with you some tips and strategies, as well as a few personal stories and experiences about why creating that next advancement opportunity is so important and why that means so much to me and how I help my clients actually go ahead and do that. So if you haven't checked out my website, please go to johnneral.com, and there is a whole learning hub section with all of these posted videos as well as my blog posts, and there is that free resource. You can just click on the link, fill out the form, and get it, and we can go ahead and get started. So here's how it starts. You know when it's time to leave your job when you get what I like to call the warning signs. And the warning signs are those things that start off really subtly and they start getting louder and louder. I remember driving into work. And it's not just on one job in particular, but throughout all the jobs that I have held in my adult life. And getting up in the morning and going, yeah, I'm not really loving this today. And it's understandable when it happens once or it happens on an offshoot. But when you're waking up every day and you're questioning or you're saying to yourself, I'm not really looking forward to going into work today. And then you get to work and it's not been the greatest day. And then you get in the car. Excuse me 1 second. Amy? My cat's trying to get out the window. I'm sorry. Or look out the window. All right. So you're driving home and you're saying to yourself, what am I doing here? What kind of work am I doing? I'm absolutely hating what I'm doing, or I'm not really loving what I'm doing. If you start getting those conversations in your head, those are warning signs, and they're warning signs of something to come. It's that first opportunity where if you've read anything about mindfulness or awareness, we understand that that's like the first step where you start going, maybe I'm not as happy as I think. You don't talk about your job with the same kind of enthusiasm as you did at the start. You're out with friends or you're talking with family and you start saying things like, work sucks, work's hard, not really liking it. If you're getting those things, those are warning signs. And so it leads very nicely, I think, into the next step here, which is you want to be able to gain clarity on your work and your career path. Throughout our career, we will always reevaluate where we are, what we're doing, how much money we're making, what's the impact of our work, how much am I contributing. We're going to go through all of those questions, and those are valid. They're natural. Right? So we want to make sure that we're able to really gain that kind of clarity to know exactly where we're at. And when I'm talking with my one-on-one clients, I will ask them this question: what's left to do? If you're in your present job and you were to be asked that question, what's left to do where you're at? And you say, nothing. Maybe it's time to leave your job. Maybe it's time to start thinking about what's next. I'm not saying it's necessarily time to leave the company. You may be able to make an internal transfer and be able to go and do some different kind of work. But if there's nothing left to do, more than likely it's probably time to move on. I remember when I was in the classroom, as much as I loved where I worked, as much as I loved working with my students and teaching mathematics, it kind of felt like I had done everything. I wasn't looking for an administrative position in the district. And it also made me feel like it really was time for me to move on. If there's nothing else there you want to do, what do you want to do? And so that leads then into number 3, which is about assessing your impact and value. You've heard me say this before while I ask my clients, what's your superpower? What's your secret sauce? What makes you stand out? What's the one thing that you can do better than anybody else that truly makes you invaluable? That you've got so much worth, they'd be afraid to lose you. When we talk about assessing your value and your impact, it really is about not only self-evaluating and say, hey, here's where I believe my strengths and my talents are, and this is some of the areas where I'm looking to grow and develop, but it's also making sure that your performance reviews and your evaluations and the feedback that you get align with it. If there's a disconnect between what you see to be as your value and contribution and the organization sees differently and not in your favor, it may be time for you to leave your job. We're talking about job satisfaction here, right? If you're not satisfied with where you're at with your job, might be time to move on. Number 4 is about having the necessary conversations. One of the things I talk with my one-on-one clients about as we go ahead and create their next advancement opportunity is I dig really deeply with them to make sure that they have all of the necessary data they need to do these 3 steps, to listen, lean in, and step forward. If they haven't had the necessary conversations, we talk about who would be the people you'd talk to and what would the conversation look like. There is one thing about a perception as opposed to evidence and reality. You could say to yourself, I'm the best thing to ever happen to this company. And a company could turn around and say, we actually find you mediocre or disposable. I've known people where that disconnect has happened and it's hard to hear. But the truth of the matter is, without having the necessary conversations to truly know where you stand within your organization and the value that they see that you bring, if you don't have those necessary conversations, your decision to leave your job is then truly based on a perception or a feeling. I often say there's a difference between truth with a capital T and truth with a small t. When I talk about truth with a capital T, what I'm talking about are the things that are evidence-based, they're concrete, they're factual. The truth of the small t are things that are based on a perception or a belief that may or may not be true. Yes, there are times when we may look at a certain situation and just say, I'm done, I got to get out of here. And maybe a necessary conversation is not something you need to have in the moment, but you've had enough conversations along the way, be it either things that have happened to you or things that have been done to you or things you've experienced, that you just have enough information that you're ready to do number 5. And number 5 is really that thing that I talk about in my free offer, which are those 3 steps to creating your next advancement opportunity without feeling overwhelmed. It's the 3rd step, and that's to step forward. You're ready to take some action. You've listened and leaned in enough to know that where you're at is not exactly where you want to be. You've gathered enough information, be it through informational interviews or doing research on various companies and positions, that you are ready for that next advancement opportunity. That step forward phase is all about taking action. And so for me, in what's happened with my career, is that all of these things that I've described to you, I've done. And a year ago this month, I had one of the most empowering and albeit difficult conversations I've ever had with a boss. I walked into my boss's office at the beginning of this month a year ago, and I told her that I was leaving. I told her I was leaving after a 5-year career in an organization that I really liked working with, but I had had all the necessary conversations to know that my value and the value where the organization saw me as was not something I wanted to continue to do. I had a really good job and I liked what I was doing, but the fact that I was running my coaching business part time and I was really enjoying that aspect of my work life grew so much bigger and stronger that for me, in terms of how I wanted to show up, I had to have that necessary conversation. And what I said to my boss was that it was with a lot of gratitude and a lot of experience that it's just simply time for me to go. And I was leaving not because I was entirely unhappy. I was leaving because I was being pulled. And I was being pulled because of my side business running my coaching practice and the work that I was doing with a few clients and the work that I was doing to put and develop more content out there in this space. And I just said, I have an opportunity to go and serve more people than I can ever serve here. And because of that, it's just time for me to go. And yes, initially she was a little shocked and surprised, but in the end, she also knew it was coming. She knew that she saw me professionally moving in a different direction. And I'm so grateful for her because she helped foster and nurture and develop those kind of skills in me to get me where I am today. And the thing that is so powerful to me, and I'm actually going to reference an interview that I did with my business coach and mentor last week. He had me a guest on his Facebook Live show, and shout out to Jeff St. Laurent, is really for us taking a look back about like what things were like a year ago. And let me tell you, it was kind of scary. It was really scary being able to think, geez, what is this next chapter of my work life is going to be like? And am I going to be successful? And what does success look like? And how are my days going to look? And how am I going to have that work-life balance that I keep talking about? And the thing of it is that I have never looked back because I listened, leaned in, and I was ready to step forward. I made the best decision for me. And I can't let this show go by without acknowledging the fact that there were also a lot of personal conversations that happened in the wings. That, I'd come home from work and I would talk to my husband, Richard, and we would have conversations about what this would look like for us financially and what it would look like for me to work out of home and would I be okay working out of the home and how would I be able to structure my time and what did benefits look like and all those kinds of things. He's been a tremendous amount of support and I am so blessed to have him in my life. And that's a big support. I have friends of mine who I talk to when I would float this idea around them and be like, well, I'm thinking about opening a coaching practice full time. And they were like, you need to do that. That's you. I can totally see you doing that. And I did. And so, at the end of the day, we decide when it's time to move on for that next job because of a totality of events and things. And when they all come together, the best way that we know it is time to leave our job is when we've gathered the information and our gut tells us it's time. Because there is something more you're meant to do. No one is going to take care of our career better than ourselves. We can want people to develop us and nurture us and move us forward, but we are the ones that have to be in complete and total ownership of that. If we're not, we're missing something. So my question to you is, if you're thinking about what's next, if you're thinking about that it's time to leave your job and move on, what does that next advancement opportunity really look like for you? And if you ever want to have a conversation about it, reach out to me. Message me here, email me at john@johnneral.com. Let's start a conversation and see what that may actually look like for you. Well, look, as we wrap up, I just want to say that it's perfectly understandable to question whether or not it's time to leave a job. Hopefully you're not asking yourself that question on day one of a new job, but certainly as we go through it, we're always kind of thinking about what's next. And so if you ever have any questions about what's really next for you, what your next advancement opportunity might look like, I encourage you to, again, reach out to me and email me at john@johnneral.com. Let's set up a conversation. Let's talk about what coaching may be able to do for you and support you along your career journey and help you just feel more satisfied with the work that you're doing as you continue to do the work and figure out what's next. So, and what's next is another episode next week, the day before Thanksgiving. And no surprise, it's all going to be about gratitude and what it means to be grateful for us in our jobs and in the workplace. And I look forward to being with you next week. Thank you so much again for joining. I really appreciate it. I hope you all have a great rest of the day. And if for any reason you're getting out there and traveling early for Thanksgiving, safe travels. We will catch up soon enough. Have a great rest of the day. Bye-bye. Thanks.